I'm so excited. I love December. I love the holidays. I love to celebrate. So if you're new here, I'm Sandy. I do DIY fashion. I knit, sew, crochet, embroider. Apparently I make shoes, even though I'm really gonna start that one day. My real gift is procrastination. But anyway, so we're gonna talk a bit today about on that note, apparently it's December. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about gifts. So I could sit here and just give you 20 different hat patterns and call it a day, but thank you, Ravelry. You can sew. It's fine. You can do it yourself. But I'm gonna talk about some like issues that I don't make a lot of gifts because of these things. So, you know, things that consider that you maybe don't consider when you take on making people a gift, because it seems really simple. Like, you give somebody something, they love it. Everybody's like, yay! You know, as they're opening it, you're like, I made it, so they have to love it. That's key. But no, it's just some little considerations, things to consider. Yeah, so first off, I have my laptop down here with notes, so if I'm looking down, that's why. So the first thing to consider is what to make. The easiest time you'll have is when somebody, like, you just see something and you're like, I'm making that for them. That's so them. That's the best thing. Yeah, nope, done. That's the easiest time you're going to have because, yeah, it just works. The harder thing, and what is a little bit more common, is when you have a list of people and you're like, what do I make them? I don't know. So there's a few ways you can go about kind of gathering. Throughout the year, kind of take notes. You know? If somebody compliments you on something, you know, you can make it in a color they like. Like, let's say you made a hat and they're like, oh, I love that hat. Okay, maybe I make it for you in like purple. But also that does have a caveat in that some people are overly polite, and if they know you make stuff, they'll compliment you anyway. Maybe, I don't know, I grew up in Canada. Like, maybe that's just us. But, you know, so you do have to kind of be careful. So what if somebody says something and before you, yeah, like they've complimented you and you're like, okay, I'm going to make you that hat. Before you make anybody anything, we've been blessed with this social media. Give them a good little creep. Like, go back. Like, if you want to make them a nice long necklace and you can't find them a picture of them wearing anything except a choker, maybe it's not the right gift. You know? So yeah, just have a think about that. Really go with what the person wants, because it's really easy, I think, as crafters, we do this where we're just like, everybody will love anything handmade because we put so much love into it, and that's not always the case. And you want to give these people things that they want, and I see it all the time in like knitting and sewing groups, and people are like, oh, you know, I made this person this beautiful blanket and they never use it, or I never see them wearing stuff. And it is frustrating. I mean, even look at Adam. I love him. I knit for him because he is my husband and I love him. But sometimes I'm like, if you're not going to wear the stuff I knit you, then like, I'm just not going to do it. It takes time. Could use that yarn for me. I like stuff too. So, you know, you really want to make sure that it's something somebody wants and will use. Another little side rant, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people give you holiday themed stuff, but they give it to you on December 25th. Because like, I can only enjoy it for one day and then I have to wait for next year. So if you do want to go kind of like holiday themed and like kitschy, those are always really safe bets. You know, you just find out what holiday they celebrate. Do they do Christmas? Do they do Hanukkah? Do they do Kwanzaa? Do they do, I am blanking on December. Even like, you can go so far as if you have your stuff together at the beginning of November, you can do like Diwali stuff. You know, it's fine. And yeah, so like, you just want to make sure you get it a couple weeks ahead of the holiday, because otherwise you're just sitting here and you're just like, oh. So that's, I don't know, that's just my pet peeve. That just could be me, I'm sure. Hello, Baxter. It's been foggy, so his strategy is he's just going to bark every 30 seconds just in case, because he doesn't want to miss the barks that he can't see, you know? So yes, that's just my thing with holiday decorations. If you're gonna do it, try to give it to the person a couple weeks before so they can at least enjoy it, you know? If you're doing wearables, one of the biggest issues is fit. See, Baxter agrees with me though. A couple weeks ahead, guys. One of the biggest issues is fit, because like you just want your thing. The only thing worse than when somebody gives you a gift that's too small is when someone gives you a gift that's too big and you're just sitting there thinking like, what, how do you see me? Like, how big do you think I am? It's just very, and there is a difference between oversized fit and like slovenly. Things need to, So, yeah, knitting is probably the easiest to get right and fit. You knit a hat, you can kind of ballpark it, it stretches, mitts stretch. Knit stuff is good. Even like with a color float, I mean, something like this, you're gonna still get a good amount of stretch. Whereas sewing, it's kind of fixed in a bit more, unless you're doing knits. There are some ways to kind of goad people into getting sizes. I mean, I've had legitimate conversations about head sizes that I didn't even have to bring up. They just come up in conversation. So, but you can kind of ask people things like if you see a sweater they like, you can just be like, or if they're wearing a sweater you like, you can be like, where did you get that? Oh my goodness. And just so I know, like, is their sizing big? Like, what size are you wearing? Then you can go grab like the sales chart off the brand or like the size chart off the brand's website. But even like, yeah, like I said, I've had conversations about, there's just like gripes people have. Like one of my friends, she loved knit hats, but her head was always too small for them. So for her birthday, I like took note of that. And then for her birthday, I made her a hat I made the ribbing like on 2 sizes less, like 2 sizes smaller needle, 2 sizes smaller needle. And I made like a 1x1 ribbing instead of a 2x2. And I made it like super stretchy and super tight. And so, yeah, there's stuff like that it's just about taking notes throughout the year. Like a creeper. But hey, you know what? Everybody gets a gift they like. So, yeah. Materials. Washability. If you know somebody is the type that they will not hand wash, lay flat to dry, don't make them a wool sweater. Don't put your time and money into that. And on the note of wool, some people, I'm not going to get into that today. Some people don't like wool for many reasons. Despite being one of the best and most environmentally friendly materials, it did kind of have a reputation. And I think we went through a phase of scratchy wool. And there's kind of like the joke, your aunt knits you the wool sweater and it kills. So yeah, like most people need to wear something small of good quality wool to really believe it's wool. But if some people, I say some people, like I'm not exactly the same. If you get something in your head, it's really hard to change your mind. So the best thing to do is, I'd say maybe stick to softer materials. Cotton's great, and it's washable. Everybody loves a good cotton. There are some really nice acrylics out there, and just like know what they wear. If it's somebody who does wear a lot of wool or wears like a lot of leather, or even if you're sewing something, make sure your fabric is something that can just be like it, your friends, their lifestyle. It's always better to veer on safe. Like cotton, I think, is the safest material. Like a good organic cotton, morally good, feels good, everybody likes it, everybody knows it, washable. Yeah. But it's just something to consider. You don't want to give somebody something that will get destroyed. And another thing too is make sure you give them a care label. So if you're knitting, you can do like a little bit of the ball band. That one day I don't have a ball band around me. A little bit of the ball band and just cut it out and like make it pretty. I'll like put it on cardboard and then do like little dots around it and felt or something. Or even just make up a little care label, because I mean, hopefully this person understands that you put a lot of work and love in it and they want it to last. So yeah. Everybody likes not having to call you in like 2 months and be like, how do I wash this? Because then you're just sitting there like, oh my God, you haven't washed that in that long. But you know what I mean? It's just, you want to make sure that people know how to care for the gift that you're giving them. There's also the consideration of you. Do you have the budget to make this gift? Do you legitimately have the time? We also have to talk about the sweater curse, because it's about the person you're giving it to as well. So there's this big thing in knitting called the sweater curse, where if you make your boyfriend a sweater, you'll break up. If you're married, it's fine. You can knit for married people forever. But yeah, it's pretty much said that as soon as you give somebody a hand knit sweater, or even before you finish the sweater, you'll break up. So I have heard a lot of evidence of this. I think it's less about like a supernatural phenomenon though, and I think it's more about the fact that when you're knitting a sweater, the investment, usually you're looking at over $100. Or I think the cheapest sweater I've ever made is probably about 70, 80 euro. I say made like I finished them. Cheapest sweater I've ever bought yarn to hoard for. Yeah. No. So it's yeah, like, you know, it's a big, it's a cost, it's a consideration. And then sweaters are not a small deal. They can take almost a year sometimes. Like they are, it's just a lot of knitting. It's a lot of stitches, and you're putting each stitch in one by one. And knitting by its very nature is a very meditative activity. And I think a lot of it stems down to the fact that you're sitting there thinking and you're like, is this person worth it? You know, like you come to the point where you're like, do you really want to be around this person? Do you love them enough to do this? And I think it makes you think about the relationship you're in when you're knitting for somebody. And I think that's where the real sweater curse comes from. You know, there's other theories, like maybe you're just making a sweater to desperately save the relationship. Like, oh, if I make them a sweater, it'll all be fine, you know. But yeah, I think that there is something to be said for the fact that it is, you want to make sure that you want to put the effort into the person that you're giving something to. Because, I mean, it's a commitment. Even a hat is a commitment. It takes time. So, you know, do you think they'll actually appreciate it? If you think that they're just going to look at it and say, oh, that's nice, and like toss it aside. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing a bought gift. Nothing wrong. So I think when it comes down to it, it really is about considering the person that you're giving the gift to. It's less about, and you know, sometimes you just sit there and you're like, oh, I want to show you how good I am at crafting. And you kind of forget, like there's a disconnect that can happen sometimes, and I don't think it's something you even realize you're doing. But my biggest tip for making people gifts, and this one works best for people really close to you, ditch the element of surprise. I hate surprises. Like when somebody's trying to surprise me with something, I will like try to figure it out. I have to. I'm the worst with it. And it's not a surprise, it's a puzzle. Most of the time, figuring out what the surprise is way better than the surprise itself. So, you know. Also, sometimes in surprises, you can inadvertently leave somebody feeling a bit left out, and that's not a good emotion. So, if you want to get them the perfect gift, let them be in on a bit of it. Say, hey, I'm making you something. Like, the first scarf I made for Adam was his first Christmas in Vancouver, and I know that he can be sensitive with fibers. So, and he was one of those scratchy people. So I actually took him to the yarn store and I let him pick out the material for the scarf. I let him pick out the color, I let him pick out the fiber, and he picked the yarn, and I didn't tell him about the pattern or anything. I just knit him a scarf. I did a 2x2 rib because I wanted it to be very like manly, you know? So, yeah, I mean, ditch the element of surprise. If you want something physical for them to open, I've also done this with, I think I did it for my mom one year. I made her something and I just like did a little booklet, and I got some cutouts from magazines being like, do you want it to look like this? Do you want it to look like this? Or maybe this? And then the gift is that you make them something and that they get to kind of pick and be a part of the design process. So, you know, there with budget, you kind of want to get in, like, don't say, I'll make you anything, because then they'll be like, oh, knit me a sweater. And it's like, I wasn't going to spend $100, but you could say a hat. We'll pick out the pattern together. Or, you know, you can even, if you have the pattern that you want to give them, you can do that and pick out the wool. Or if you have the wool, you can be like, this is your gift. I will make it into something for you. That way, kind of, they get a bit of say, and you know that it's going to go to somebody. You know you're going to give somebody what you want. And surprise is underrated anyway. I mean, I think just telling somebody that you can make them something is a great surprise. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on gift giving and how I go about it. And so yeah, I'm happy that you guys could stay in chat. I'll see you hopefully tomorrow if I have things together. I think I will. Yeah, really exciting. See you later. Bye.